In an option to purchase a real estate, which statement is true of the optionee? An optionee has no obligation to purchase the property during the option period. A village board has decided that a parking lot would enhance the beauty, safety, and vitality of its community by keeping cars from parking on the street. Unfortunately, a house is located on the land needed for a new parking lot. Based on this fact, which statement is true? The village may tear down the house, but must first pay the homeowner a fair amount for the home. A home is the smallest in the neighborhood of large, expensive houses. The effect of the other houses on the value of the small houses is known as progression. The effect of the other houses on the value of the small house is known as progression. A lien that arises as a result of a judgment, estate or inheritance taxes, a descendant's debt, or federal tax is what type of lien? A general lien. All of the following will terminate an offer to purchase real estate. Failure to accept the offer within a prescribed period, a conditional acceptance of the offer by the offeree, the death of the offeror or offeree, except revocation by the offeror communicated to the offeree after acceptance. Two men are joint tenants. One of the men sells his interest to another person. What is the remaining man's relationship to the new tenant regarding the property? Tenants in common. Two friends enter into a 6-month oral lease. If one friend defaults, the other may bring a court action because 6-month leases need to be in writing to be enforceable. Again, two friends enter into a 6 months oral lease. If one friend's default, the other may bring a court action because 6 months lease need to be don't need to be in writing to be enforceable. Doesn't need to be in writing to be enforceable. On Monday, the buyer offers to purchase a vacant lot for $25,000. On Tuesday, the owner county offers to sell the lot for $29,000. On Friday, the owner withdraws the county offers and accepts the buyer's original offer of $25,000. Under these circumstances, which statement is true? No value agreement exists because the seller's counter offer was a rejection of the buyer's offers. And once rejected, it cannot be accepted later. A man's neighbor uses his driver to reach their garage, which is on the property. The man's attorney explained that the neighbors have the right to use the driver. The man's property is the serving tenement. A deed conveys ownership to the grantee as long as the existing building is not torn down. What type of estate does this deed create? Fee simple, determinable estate. Local zoning ordinances may regulate all of the following: height of the building in an area, density of the population, appropriate use of building in an area, except market value of a property. A broker took a listing and later discovered that the client had been declared incompetent by a court. What is the current status of the listing? The listing is of no value to the brokerage because the contract is void. After a borrower default on a home mortgage loan payment, the lender obtained a court order to foreclose on the property. At the foreclosure sale, the property sold for $164,000. The unpaid balance on the loan at the time of foreclosure was $178,000. That what must the lender do to recover the $14,000 that the borrower still owe? Seek a deficiency judgment. Which activity is forbidden by the Federal Fair Housing Act of 1968? Limitation by religion and nationality in the sale of a single-family home where the property is not advertised by the listing broker. A licensee arrives to present a purchase offer to a seller who is seriously ill and finds the seller's sons and daughter-in-law also present. The son and daughter-in-law angrily urge the seller to accept the offer, even though it is much less than the asking price for the property. If the seller accepts the offer, she may not be bound by it because the seller was under undue influence from the son and daughter-in-law, so the contract is voidable. A property is sold. The deed of conveyance contained only the following guarantee: this property was not encumbered during the time the seller owned it, except as noted in this deed. What type of deed makes such a covenant? Special warranty. An unmarried couple owns a parcel of real estate. Each owns an undivided interest, with one owing 1/3 and the other owing 2/3. The form of ownership under which the couple owns their property is tenancy in common. A licensee listed a house for $247,000. A member of a racial minority group saw the house and was interested in it. When the prospective buyer asked the licensee the price of the house, the licensee said that it is listed in $253,000, and that the seller was very firm on the price. Under the Federal Fair Housing Act of 1968, such a statement is illegal because the term of the potential sale were changed to a higher price for the prospective buyer. A woman placed a property in a trust. When she died, her will directed the trustee to sell the property and distribute the proceeds of the sale to her heirs. The trustee sold the property in accordance with the will. What type of deed was delivered at settlement? Trustee deed. An appraisal has been hired to prepare an appraisal report of a property for loan purposes. The property is an elegant old mansion that is now used as a restaurant. Which approach to value should the appraisal probably give the greatest weight with making this appraisal? Income. A borrower applied for a mortgage, and the loan officer suggests that the borrower consider a term mortgage loan. Which statement best explain what the loan officer means? The entire principal amount is due at the end of the term. A condominium community has a swimming pool, tennis court, and a biking trail. These facilities are most likely owned by the unit owner in the forms of percentage undivided interest. On the closing statement for a typical real estate transaction, the buyer's earnest money deposit is a credit to the buyer only. On the closing statement for a typical real estate transaction, prepaid insurance and tax reserves, where the buyer assumes the mortgage, is a debit to the buyer and credit to the seller. Real estate can become personal property by the process known as severance. A man and a woman and a next door neighbor, the man gives the woman permission to park in a camper in his yard for a few weeks. He does not charge her rent for the use of the yard. The man has given the woman a license. A seller signs a listing agreement with a licensee. A second licensee obtains a buyer for the house, and the first licensee does not receive a commission. The first licensee does not sue the seller, even though the seller compensated the second licensee. The listing agreement between the seller and the first licensee was probably which type? Open. Antitrust law do not prohibit real estate